All right, hello everybody. Time to talk a little bit about the Iran war. So, the main thrust here is that Dave Smith has been making a point in the last few episodes of Part of the Problem that I think is actually a pretty good point about the Iran war and how what they're doing is even worse than what George W. Bush did to the American people in 2003 regarding the Iraq war, right? In the Iraq war case, yes, they lied to us and they lied us into war, but at least the plans and the justifications that they gave were reasonably coherent. They were false, but they were reasonably coherent. In this case, the Trump warmongering groups have not only lied about a million things, but they've also basically pushed this totally incoherent view of what the war is even about, what it's for. Everyone is saying something different. And Dave Smith, in his episode The Truth About War from last week, kind of breaks this down in a really good way. I kind of cut out a little bit of fluff between some of the points that he was making to this exact topic, but hopefully, you'll enjoy this clip. So, without further ado, here's a short clip of Dave Smith's Part of the Problem episode, The Truth About War. Link in the description for the whole thing if you haven't seen it.
You're supporting a war that is, the justification is 10 times more incoherent than the justification for the war in Iraq. It makes absolutely no sense. What people are arguing, I mean, they're grasping at straws. It's the most ridiculous goddamn shit ever. They don't even have a justification. The only coherent one that they came up with was this one that we just played, which, as I said, leaves more questions than answered. The justification is essentially, well, we're controlled by our own client state. But all the other justifications, we've been at war we didn't start this war, we're finishing this war, says idiot Pete Hegseth. Oh, really? We've been at war for 47 years? How come that never came up on the campaign trail then? Since you guys were running while we were in an active war that our country was not responding to, why didn't you run on, we're at war with Iran, we're going to finish this war? It's been going on for 47 years after all. Oh, yeah, because it's stupid and you're lying through your fucking teeth. Say what you will about the Bush administration, and I'll say quite a bit. They should all be in jail for the rest of their lives. But they went on the record with evidence and made claims and stuck their neck out there and said, this is what's going on. I put my reputation on the line. Colin Powell went to the United Nations with the little vial of a thing and charts and fucking talked about their mobile chemical weapons stations. Now, none of those existed. He was lying through his teeth. He knew he was lying, and he's burning in hell now because of that. But at least he went out and said something. You guys, just every one of you makes up your own fucking thing. All of them have different justifications. What is the end game here? What are we trying to do? They keep saying Donald Trump will go as long as he can till his mission is accomplished. Who defines what the fucking mission is? Here's JD Vance is defining it as they not only will they make the decision to not get a nuke, but the Iranian people will know that they can't make a nuke. They've already made that decision. They promised it. They've declared it. They said they're willing to negotiate. By the way, they have negotiated. They joined the JCPOA. They kept enrichment down to 3%. They did all of this shit until Donald Trump tore it up. So but by the way, Vice President J.D. Vance, the president of the United States, said the goal was regime change. They can't even come up with like a coherent, they can't all, at least in the Bush administration, they all stuck to script. They all had the same thing to say. Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. He was in on 9/11. He's working with the terrorists. In a post 9/11 world, we can't have a rogue regime who's working with the terrorists have nuclear weapons. That is coherent. It was lies. None of it was true, but it's a coherent argument at least. It doesn't justify a war of aggression, by the way, but it's at least an argument that could maybe get someone to go, maybe this is the move.
So, I don't know. I just thought this was a pretty good point that I don't hear anybody else making. Like, the propaganda point is always an issue, right? There's always like, oh yeah, well, we're propagandizing people about this or that or the other. In this case, they're not even really bothering to propagandize anybody in any coherent way. They're just throwing out like a Destiny-style gish gallop of nonsensical reasons why we absolutely have to take out Iran right now. And I just thought it would be fun to like list a couple of these, right? So, number one, regime change. We're going to regime change Iran. That's a great idea. Those always go real well. And then we have other people that are saying, no, it's not regime change. And so, which one of them is lying? Both of them cannot both be correct. We have people who are saying, "Oh, well, what we're going to do is we're going to, cut the head off of the regime and give the dissidents a chance to make them, help them build their own government up, their own resistance kind of thing." And, well, that doesn't appear to be happening either, because people are in the streets, even in Tehran, protesting the violence against their government. There was a rally around the flag effect that anyone with an IQ over 60 should have, predicted. We have the weird slip up where, I forget who it was. I think it might have been, was it Hegseth or Cruz? He said that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to protect U.S. assets from a counterattack after Israel makes a first strike. Well, that doesn't sound like a particularly great justification, right? The thing to do would have been to, number one, disavow first strikes, whoever is making the first strike. Number two, move troops out of the, danger area. And, number three, to say, hey, we're not participating in this anymore, kind of thing. That would have been a much better solution. But instead, the choice was to kill a bunch of innocent people first. Doesn't make any sense. The other day, someone said, "Oh, Iran had these 1,200 missiles, and they were going to take over the whole Middle East." And it's like, that's not just a lot. I mean, it might be true that they have 1,200 missiles, but the idea of them taking over the entire Middle East with these 1,200 missiles is, I believe, a lie, and if not a lie, insanity, absurd insanity. So that's another good one. Terrorism. Iran does terrorism, and then tomahawk a school. Well, sure, it makes perfect sense. There are even people who are going so far as to say, no, this is something that's been going on for 47 years, ever since the embassy hostage situation. And it's like, well, wait. I mean, Reagan dealt with Iran like 3 or 4 years after that in the Iran-Contra scandal. So this isn't really this is like, we cool. And then 40 years later, you're like, we're not cool anymore. It's also kind of crazy. And then we have the two that are fun, which is they were making nukes, which, I mean, is not true. There's no intelligence that says that it's true. At least, that the people have gotten a chance to see. The international groups that were keeping watch over them said that it wasn't true. As far as I know, all of the American intelligence that had come out to the public said it wasn't true. And then there was the 12-day war, which now isn't really a 12-day war. It's 12 days of war, a few months of quiet, and then more war. So that sucks too, right? And supposedly these things were blown up, even though we didn't have a proper, third-party damage assessment come out either. So I don't know. And then we have, no, it's not that they were making nukes. It's that they were making these missiles that would give them cover in order to make nukes, which applies to every country in the world that has missiles or a tank or anything. Well, they're building tanks so that they can be safe while they make nukes. It's like, that's another reason that just basically kills itself via absurdity. Anyway, that's all I've got. I figured it would make some kind of a interesting short video just to show how depraved everything that's going on right now is. And I think Dave is making a good point about how this is worse than George W. Bush in Iraq. And the only reason that's not as bad now is because the casualties haven't stacked up yet. So that's what I got for this time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you next time.